Past 8.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Russell Norman.
Co-leader of the Greens, Mr. Russell Norman. Good morning, Russell.
Morning, Wammo. How's it going?
Very, very good. Of course, election 2011 is all go. All the leaders, well, most of the leaders have come out with initial speeches, like their State of the Nation speeches. You come out with something a little bit different, something called State of the Planet.
Yeah, that's right. Greens take the big picture, Wammo.
Yeah. Now, this was at an event at the end of last week. Give us the guts of the speech. What was it all about?
The guts of the speech was that we need to restructure our economy in light of the fact that we live on a finite planet with finite resources. So we need to restructure it within those limitations of planet Earth, but also that there are real opportunities in green technology. And so in terms of what the New Zealand economy can be good at and what it can do, we actually have some good opportunities in green technology.
Okay. Meanwhile, the Blue Greens were having something also last week, and they announced their plans for a green economy as well. How do your plans differ to the Blue Greens?
The Blue Greens conference had a series of announcements. So, for example, one of the things they announced was that they were weakening air quality standards, which was a funny thing to announce at a Blue Greens conference.
Yeah.
And a few other things of similar nature. In terms of the economy, they, we take the view that in a world where we're carbon constrained, we need a strong price signal on carbon. And so one of the first things National did when they got in was actually they weakened the price signal on carbon. We think that there need to be strong regulations around, for example, energy performance standards of appliances and industrial equipment. They don't really like rules and regulations like that, whereas we think that they're kind of essential. I mean, if you look at what's happened in California, they've driven energy efficiency by ever increasing the standards for energy efficiency. So we kind of have a bit of a difference around the role of regulation as well, I'd say.
You didn't announce any kind of asset sales?
No, we're into building assets. Our natural capital. We need to build our natural capital as well as our social capital and financial capital. Yeah.
But why? Why though?
Why do we need to build our natural capital?
Or our social capital, or our infrastructure capital?
Well, because if you keep selling off bits of the house in order to pay the food bills, eventually you're going to find yourself pretty impoverished. So National says we can mine a national park, or we can mine an aquifer for water. You're just selling off a bit of your capital in order to fund current consumption. I just think we need to build up that basic natural capital, because it's the foundation of the New Zealand economy. And in terms of asset sales, I mean, I find it interesting that this government has introduced tax cuts that cost $15 billion, targeted towards the upper end, and then they're using the fact that they've got a fiscal deficit to justify asset sales for a problem that they themselves are largely responsible for.
Is one of the problems also here that the government is blurring the line between public and private debt?
There's a little bit of that. Obviously the really big issue in the New Zealand economy has been private sector debt, and that's been largely, a lot of it has gone to fund housing market speculation. The report that came out yesterday around savings said that half of the increase in house prices over the last decade, and they've basically doubled, that half of that increase is due to the tax rules. So we've incentivised through the tax system property speculation. So that's why part of our speech is, look, we need a capital gains tax excluding the family home, so that we don't have a tax system which incentivises housing speculation, because we've been borrowing lots of money from overseas so that we can trade houses from each other. And for what? I mean, we've got a lot more debt now, but our houses aren't really twice as good as they were 10 years ago.
Okay, well, looking forward throughout the year, I mean, what is the goal for this election? Because the makeup of the Greens is starting to change. Some of the old guard are retiring. So what's the plan?
Well, we've been through a kind of rejuvenation process that probably, I guess you'd say, started when I became co-leader back in 2006. So the party's been slowly changing from the old guard, who got in 1999. Pardon me. And that at the election it will be complete. I mean, none of the 1999 MPs will still be there.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? You can't say that for the other parties.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think it shows that the stability and unity of the Greens, that and that we stand for something, and that kind of keeps us driven and together.
And the funny thing is, like, none of those people have left under any kind of scandal or anything. You look at all the other parties, when people leave, a lot of the time it's because something's gone wrong. Yeah,
that's right. We've actually we've had a pretty good bunch of MPs who have done a really solid job, because they're there because they really believe in something, and they're trying to make the world, better for people and also look after the environment, and that's what keeps us all together. So anyway, I mean, obviously for the Greens, we want to get over 10% of the party vote at the election, so we can get in a whole bunch of more people, because we've got a lot of good people on our list. At our conference on the weekend, there's heaps of great candidates, and I'd love to see some of them in Parliament. And so that's really our number one target at the election.
And what did you get in 2008?
We got 6.7, I think, or nearly 7.
So need just over 3% to hit your target.
Yeah. So we need a 50% increase, if you like, on our vote.
Yeah.
I think that's doable, but it's a step up. And also, we tend to work in. I mean, our system tends to be, if you look at a lot of the coverage, it's Labor and National, and that's kind of it. So we also need to try to create get it in people's minds that this isn't just a two-party system, and the Greens are, a pretty solid part of the political spectrum now. And if you look at, just another great storm about to hit Queensland, I mean, for goodness sakes, climate change is like one of the big issues of the century.
It's happening right before our eyes, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame any one event on climate change, but the intensity and frequency of these extreme weather events will increase, and Queensland is copping it right now. And, we've had droughts and floods here and all that, and the intensity and the cost of those events just increases over time. So we really need to get cracking on cutting our greenhouse emissions, and that, we really need more Greens to do that. And
finally, Russell, are you planning on standing in an electorate seat at all?
Yeah, I stand in Rongotai, which is like around the Wellington Airport, the Miramar and South Wellington.
Oh, I thought it was Mount Albert, bro.
Mount Albert, bro. Oh, well, I ran a good campaign in Mount Albert, but to democracy, they chose David Shearer, which is fair enough. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Rongotai. Okay. All right. And so that is still the policy, to stand a Green MP in every electorate.
Yeah. I mean, we've focused on the party vote, and that's what we want. But we do also run in electorate seats right across the country, because I think it's, you want to have that local connection as well.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks very much, Russell. Cheers for your time.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Co-leader of the Greens, Russel Norman there.